I believe firmly that leadership is the opportunity to have influence and impact. And if you want to lead others well, you have to lead yourself first, because how we lead ourselves is how we are able to lead others. And so how it shows up in practice is I know what I have to actually do in order to set the right example to have influence and meaning for others. Self leadership is really about.
Welcome to Fixers and Founders, where vision meets velocity. I'm Tony.
I'm Forrest.
Today's guest, Dusty Holcomb, former CEO of Red Stag Fulfillment, board leader, endurance athlete, and the founder of the Arcqus Group, where he helps growth-minded executives turn clarity into traction. Dusty's built his career at the intersection of strategic execution and people-first leadership, from transforming AAA Carolinas into a growth engine to scaling Red Stag into an award-winning logistics brand. Now he coaches high-performing CEOs to lead with alignment, build systems that scale, and reclaim what matters most. If you're leading a growing team or trying to lead yourself through a new season, this one's for you. I'm Tony.
I'm Forrest.
This is Fixers and Founders. Let's get it done.
You didn't start a business to put out fires, but here you are, holding the extinguisher. Business isn't theory, it's pressure, late nights, tight margins, the thing that keeps breaking no matter how many times you fix it. When the room's on fire, the amateurs shout, the pros stay calm. That's the Fixers and Founders way. Part discipline, part rebellion. We walk into broken systems, find the pulse, and make it run clean. Because calm isn't weakness. Calm is a strategy. We're operators, builders, problem solvers. Born from the grind. Built for the builders. Join us now as we chat with Fixers and Founders just like you. Let's jump in.
So Forrest, I have to ask, are you an Auburn or an Alabama man?
Oh, man. So I'm at a co-working space and my wife is like one booth over from me. So I'm going to say that I am an Auburn fan by marriage. How about that?
I love it. Self-preservation. You have to pick a side. I'm an Auburn man. So
yeah,
you're an Auburn man by marriage, which means you're smart.
Like the bed. I don't like the couch. Dusty, you've had every title, seems like CMO, COO, president, CEO, and now you coach other executives. When did you realize that leadership itself was where your craft excelled?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question. To know when it was where my craft excelled was much later. When I realized that I was passionate about it was probably at age 21, when I got tucked under the wing of a retired colonel who helped me understand that leadership wasn't about me, that it was about those that I lead and helping them be successful. And so that became my life's passion. And I realized that it was not just something I did, but my calling and how I wanted to make it a vocational outlet maybe about 10 years ago. And I realized that I was doing this work every day in leading large teams. And it's like, there's a better way. There's a path beyond just doing it in the corporate world. And I was always blessed to be able to do that in the corporate world, and then realized, hey, there's a way to expand this and to serve others and really help them unlock their own degrees of success. So it was about 10 years ago. I was leading a bunch of different organizations. I was an entrepreneur, so I was always starting new businesses and helping them scale, and realized that, actually, I kind of want to be an entrepreneur. It just took me about another 9 years to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I call myself a reluctant entrepreneur. It took me a while to figure out that that's what I needed to do. So I hear you.
Yeah, once you get a little taste of that apple, though, and there's nothing quite like it, and all of the the dangers that go along with it, which is you never really rest your head easy at night. You always have something on your mind. There's always more to be done. So it's a blessing and a curse, just depending on which day it is.
That's right.
True. Steve, so you took Red Stag from a startup to like 250% capacity growth. What's the most misunderstood part of leading at that kind of scale?
Yeah, I joined Red Stag as they were getting free from the launching pad of the rocket ship, right after COVID. E-commerce is booming, and leading at that type of scale, and I've done it with AAA and different other businesses, is really understanding what doesn't need to be done. And that's the hardest part of scaling a business, is there's so many opportunities. And oftentimes we think about scale as we have to plan out the next 18, 24, 36 months. And we get all wrapped around the axle with all these plans about, well, we have to get these 19 steps in place before we can scale. And actually what we need to do is we need to figure out what are the right next steps to do. And we have to have a mind towards the future, but we can't get so focused on it that we don't actually do the work right now that helps us get to that next level. And so I think being able to do that and doing it in short sprints, that's certainly been my experience is that you can plan for lots of things, you can think about all this scale, but you just got to go do the work and embrace the opportunities because that becomes this flywheel that just spins faster and faster and faster. And I found over and over again, both with the organizations I've led and those that I coach and help, that it's easy to get locked into a scale mindset and forget that you actually need to be focused on growing.
That definitely tracks some of my experience with teams thus far also. And would you say that some of that would lend to deciding what needs to be done versus what maybe you want to do?
Yeah. And it's, one of the curses of great entrepreneurs and visionaries is there's always these new ideas. And I know I had this all the time. It's like, bright, shiny object syndrome or squirrel syndrome. It's being able to distill to what is the most important thing or most important things, just a few, and being able to say no to almost everything else. I have a quote printed and framed in my office that says, my favorite Warren Buffett quote, the most successful people say no to almost everything. And I don't have it there as, a reminder to others. I have it there as a reminder to myself because it's so easy to go down these rabbit holes and lose sight of what is the thing that's going to get you to where you want to go. And that's a constant distillation and reaffirming process. I know for me and for most of the leaders I work with as well.
Well, like Forrest likes to say, that's a good word. Thank you.
Love saying no. That's something I had to learn myself, and it is difficult. You want to
It's
say
so
yes.
hard.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So you're a servant leader and a 5-time Ironman, which I'm still impressed with because I'm not even a third of an Ironman yet. What do triathlons teach you about business? I'm really curious about what you've taken from that.
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I like the way you frame this. What doing triathlons taught me about business is a couple things. And I like to break things into threes. I'm always going to have a rule of three. There's three things I learned. Rule number one or lesson number one is you have to begin with the end in mind. You have a goal. So when you sign up for an Ironman race, you're typically doing this a year out. So it's almost feels so far away as to not be real, but it's also big enough to scare the absolute bejesus out of you so that you're motivated to get up and go do the training. So you're beginning with the end in mind. And I think that's what businesses need to do too. You got to have that goal over the horizon, the target you're shooting for. The second thing is then you need to deconstruct that to the work you need to do right now. What's your plan? And so the Ironman race or any long distance endurance athlete type of race, it's never about the race. It's about the training you do on the preparation front to get ready for it. Every race I did, I remember standing there on the beach at my very first Ironman in Panama City, Florida. It was cold, but I was completely at peace. This is my first one. I should be absolutely scared, wetting my pants, but I was at peace because I knew I had done the work. I, spent 365 days showing up, doing the work, getting out of bed early in the morning, whatever it was. So I was prepared. So lesson number two, and I think it applies in business, have a plan and work the plan. And then the third thing for me that I learned about business is you just got to grind it out and do it. Like there's nothing fun about waking up on a Thursday morning at 3:30 to go do a 20-mile run before work. That's not something that I never found that to be the highlight of my week. I enjoyed it when it was done. But you just have to do the work. And it's not always supposed to be enjoyable. It's not always supposed to be fun, but it's part of the process. And I think that sometimes in business, we can get so fixated on, well, this has got to be fun. This has got to be rewarding. This has got to be all exciting and sexy. Sometimes you just got to grind it out and do the thing. And then it's not about that. It's about what you're trying to build, the thing you're trying to do, the goal you're trying to accomplish. So those would be the three things that I know I learned and relearned and reaffirmed when I was doing long distance endurance sports.
So it's interesting that you shared that because one of the visionaries that I worked for, his business, he was in business for like 10 years and then started doing Ironmans. And that's when his business started to grow. because he literally took the discipline out of that structure and applied it to the business. So you're speaking my language.
Well, it's so funny you bring that up because I would look back now and say, I think I did some of my best professional work
Hmm.
when I was finding a way somehow to put in 15 to 20 hours a week in training.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just have to be disciplined.
Right.
And I think sometimes we can let time be so slippery as opposed to being disciplined about how we use it.
Yeah, 100%. I take a couple thoughts away from that there too. I sometimes use the phrase with the teams I work with. Yeah, you're probably familiar, Dusty, embrace the suck.
Mm.
Whether it's about making cold calls or, doing a triathlon. And the other thing, came to mind is like, I would hope that at least you would wait to maybe wet your pants until the swimming portion of the race.
Depends on how cold it is.
So Arcqus Group, there you help leaders bridge the gap between vision and execution. What's one practical system that any founder or CEO can start using today?
Any CEO, any founder is a system, an application of time, because the most common thing that I find in working with even very high functioning CEOs, in fact, I was working on this earlier today as we record this for myself. What is your time schedule? What is your ideal calendar? How do you want to plan your time? How do you want to decide in advance? And I think that that's the most important thing. If we do the work in advance to decide what's most important, we give ourselves permission to say no to those things which are going to distract us. So the practice that I would recommend is auditing your calendar and looking at what is creating value, what is detracting value, what is it that I am uniquely gifted to do, and how much of my time am I spending doing that? And then plan your year. So literally, as we record this today, my wife and I sat down this weekend and said, what's our year look like coming up? What are the most important things we want to block on the calendar? And then I start putting in, what are my quarterly planning days? When's my deep think week? What does my weekly routine look like? And so that I'm actually making some adjustments to my calendar right now because I know I do my best thinking work early in the morning. So I'm blocking out my mornings. So those are the times where I'm going to do the things that only I can do when I'm freshest. And I get energy and helping clients later in the afternoon. So my schedule is built to maximize and optimize, for delivery of that. I think what happens is we often think, well, we have to be perfect. And so founders, entrepreneurs, like, don't try to be perfect. Try to be 75% on target. Because if you deliver against your ideal week designed to do what you are most gifted and capable of doing, and you can hit that 75% of the time, you're ahead of 95% of the other people out there.
That's got to be true, because I know personally some founders, they don't use their calendar at all.
Yeah, you got to manage the calendar. The calendar will manage you.
Well, if you're not managing the calendar, everyone else is managing your time, and you're not getting the value out that only you can do. Like it's return on invested time. In business, we always talk about return on invested capital. What's our ROI? I think a lot about return on invested time. How can I allocate these very precious and finite minutes to get the maximal return, and think about it as a compounding asset, not a single investment asset. So if I do this well today and I do it again tomorrow and I do it again tomorrow, I'm going to get a compounded return on invested time. And you just have to think differently so that you empower yourself with grace and love to say no to those things that aren't aligned with what creates the most value.
You talk a lot about self-leadership. What does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah, I believe firmly that leadership is the opportunity to have influence and impact. And if you want to lead others well, you have to lead yourself first. And so that means you set standards in place by knowing who you are. So like principles of self-leadership, know yourself, know what you're good at, know what you're bad at, know what your weak spots are, know where you need to show up differently. Because how we lead ourselves is how we are able to lead others. And so how it shows up in practice is I know what I have to actually do in order to set the right example to have influence and meaning for others. And so like going back to our last conversation, like I have this calendar routine and system and discipline that I do for myself and I teach. I do it as a self-preservation or as a self-leadership mechanism to make myself more impactful so that I'm not just out there telling people what to do. I'm actually helping myself. These are guardrails or principles I put in place to help me. And so self-leadership is really about understanding who you are and how you need to grow and change so that you can be authentic and real in leading and serving others. If you're not leading yourself, you're not being consistent and you're not going to be able to create influence and impact for others because they're going to see through when you say things that you don't actually do. And that's not leadership. That's just, at that point, it's just devolving into management.
Yeah, I like that you finished with that too. That's been something that's been on my mind. Practice what you preach,
Mhm.
essentially. Practicing what you preach.
There's a great book, The Wisdom of the Bullfrog by Admiral Bill McRaven. It's one of my recent most favorite books. In fact, I give it to all of our leaders that go through our Leadership Accelerator programs. And I love it because of the tagline. The book is filled with amazing wisdom. I highly recommend it. But the tagline is leadership is simple, but not easy. Like it's not hard to understand. It's hard to consistently do. And that's what we have to make sure we do.
Right on.
And yet
So Dusty,
another book for you to read, Tony, if you haven't heard that one.
and just pulled it up. I'll be sure to let the listeners know. And yes, I am amassing more of a collection to be read of all the books that all the guests recommend, and some real doozies so far. So awesome. Thank you for that one. Dusty, what's one principle, tool, or mental model that consistently helps leaders get unstuck?
Unstuck is what is the one thing that I can do that would make the next step easier or even unnecessary. And I borrow that from another book, The One Thing by Gary Keller. But like, it's so often we get bogged down. Like we have so many things coming at us. We have so much noise, so much being able to stop and go, okay, I can't control everything, but what can I control right now? And the one thing I can do. And so that would be the first principle that I would go to is, hey, when you have the craziness that's going on and, the emails are dinging and the Slacks are dinging and all the stuff, it's like, okay, what's the one thing I can do that is completely within my circle of control that will move and advance the ball to where we want to be? And then I'm going to do that. And I'm going to turn everything else off. I'm just going to do that. So a bias towards action is always going to be, a principle I would recommend. And the second thing is kind of a bonus thought there is maybe it's a second principle of thinking is what is within my locus of control? So much time is spent on things that might happen or are only in our circle of influence or circle of concern, to use Stephen Covey's language. But like, what is it that I can control? What is the agency I have, the power of choice that I have to actually execute? And let me just do that, because we can just get so wrapped around the axle of things we can't control.
Awesome. Well, now we've got some totally random squirrel questions for you. How about that?
Good. I love this. This will be fun.
Nothing too spicy.
What's a movie or song you irrationally love and will argue is underrated? A movie or song?
Ooh, a movie or a song. I don't know if it's underrated or not, but the first song that comes to mind, first off, I'm a huge Dave Matthews fan. So, child of the 90s or college of the 90s. Ants Marching. Like, I love that song because it just makes me stop and think. And it's not underrated at all. It's a super powerful and great song. But like all these things going on, it doesn't matter. We would just get so busy. I love that song. So now I'm going to have that in my head for the rest of the interview.
Dusty, imagine if you will, if you've got a blank week on your calendar, no meetings, no phone, what are you doing?
Okay, this is not hard at all for me. If I have a blank week on the calendar and no meetings, no family obligations, I am finding a way to get out west on the back of a horse and getting into the backcountry to chase something, elk, mountain sheep, whatever. I don't even have to get anything. Cool. I just need to be out there in the biggest country possible where I'm the smallest thing around.
Love it. That's awesome.
That sounds like a blast. Dusty, you mentioned elk, so I'll just mention this. I've got a couple of elk hounds. You familiar with them?
I've heard the name. I'm not real sure what the breed is, though.
Beautiful dog. They're a Norwegian elk hound. They don't get particularly big, like you say, but, watch some of their videos with them on YouTube running these massive moose. It's pretty fun.
I'll check that out. I'm sitting here looking at my elk on the wall right now. So
you might find yourself with some elk hound by next week. You'll fall in love. They're great dogs, by the way.
Chickens away from them, right?
Just don't put them together with chickens. Individually, they're okay. Like Gunner, he's good with all the chickens in the back. He's running with about 30 chickens right now and a couple of pygmy goats. Put Mama out there with him. Forget it. She's gonna neck one of them. Yeah, he just had to figure that out. But yeah, separately, like individually, they're okay. When they get that pack mentality going, forget it. The birds they're due.
All right. That was Dusty Holcomb. Proof that operational excellence and human-centered leadership aren't opposites. They're a force multiplier. From boardrooms to Ironman finish lines, Dusty reminds us that clarity, alignment, and discipline aren't just business buzzwords. They're the foundation of lasting success. If you're building a team, a business, or a better version of yourself, rewind this one. I'm Forrest.
I'm Tony.
This was Fixers and Founders.
Oh, my darlings, look at you. Still here with me till the end. That's how I know you're one of us. The fixers, the founders, the ones who build in the chaos and still manage to laugh through it. Drop a comment, share your sparks, and connect with each other. This is where the net weaving begins. Like, share, and subscribe to keep the fire blowing. Until next time.